African migrant integration in France. So I'm going to be talking about the migration of North Africans into Europe, specifically into France. And I apologize for my drawings, guys. I have no talent, but I'm having fun. So, by North Africa specifically, I mean Western Sahara, Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, and Sudan. And then I'm also going to bring in a little bit of the Sahel, which is Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and then a few other little countries down here that I'm not going to mention. Now, North Africa, in particular, the Maghreb, which is Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, and Libya. People in these places will migrate due to economic reasons. They'll be looking for a better life or for better education. Here's a little graduation hat. I'm sure you can't tell what that is. It's got a tassel. Whereas people in the Sahel will often migrate for due to the violence that is taking place there. That's a gun. Or because of environmental reasons, namely a drought, and various other just issues. And people from the Sahel, I'm drawing some little people, will often migrate to North Africa in the Maghreb, and then people in the Maghreb will migrate to across the Mediterranean to countries like Spain. I can do Spain. I know how to draw Spain. Spain's a square. I can't even draw squares, guys. Or France. That's France. Or Italy. Yay, Italy. Now I want to talk specifically about France. France is the second largest, it has the second largest number of refugees after Germany. Last year they had this number, asylum seekers. And a lot of people from especially the Maghreb will go to France because they're ex-colonies, and so they already are familiar with the language of French and the culture of French, and that makes it easier to integrate in theory. Part of why it is not easy necessarily to integrate is because France, in general, has a very secular and proud country. This is the Eiffel Tower, just so you know that I'm for sure talking about France, but I'm sure you can't tell that this is the Eiffel Tower. There we go. We can have a hat too. There we go. Eiffel Tower. Oops. France doesn't like changing its culture very much. It likes to keep itself all nice and the same all the time, which, when a whole bunch of migrants are coming in and wanting, to show up in France, with their own cultures. In the Maghreb and Northern Africa in particular, it's a very Islamic-based culture. That's the Islamic symbol. But also people will come in with Jewish identities. And France doesn't necessarily let these people integrate super well because France likes to keep its culture the same. This is a wall. It's a brick wall. You can't necessarily tell that. You can pretend that the rest of the bricks fill up. And so this often means that migrants are left in France. They've been pushed to the outskirts of town and are living in tents. They're called informal migrant camps. And there's lots of people in unused buildings or on the side of the road in these tents. And they don't assimilate into the culture very well. They can't cross the wall into actual French culture. This lack of integration can prove problematic as people from North Africa, especially those with their different identities, are not welcome very much, to the point where girls have gotten expelled for trying to go to school in a headscarf, and the Muslim migrant population has been blamed. Acts of terrorism have been blamed on them. This is a turban. This is a gun. Even if they did not do it. This kind of lack of integration and lack of acceptance has caused some problems, as especially people who migrated from the Maghreb as an ex-colonial after World War II ended up going back to places in the Middle East and Africa and becoming a foreign...
Here we go.
Oh my God. Terrorist fighter. Some of them, in fact, went to Syria. And then they try and go back to France to reintegrate themselves back into the culture, and they face even more discrimination and lack of integration. So you end up with a cycle. This has also caused tension between the French and the migrants, with 63, in a recent poll, 63% of people say too many migrants, and they want to crack down on these camps and get rid of them. Which obviously does not actually solve the problem, as simply getting rid of these camps would then just end up with lots of people with nowhere to go. And as we've learned in the class, that does not necessarily solve any problems. And so it's not necessarily the best way to deal with things. Instead, some suggestions from people about the best way to go about integrating migrants into France is to start with communication. If people can dialogue with each other, especially about their cultural differences. This is supposed to be a cross, because this guy is going to have a little Muslim symbol. If they can talk about their differences and the best ways to communicate and work together, that's one way. Or they can, schools can start integrating kind of the history of the Maghreb into their curriculum. This is a textbook. So that people can learn about the places where people are coming from. And France can start to, this is that wall that we had before, if they start putting holes in it, and being able to see through to the other side and talk about the cultures that they see. That is a better way to integrate people into France, and to stop being so homogenous and sticklers, but to accept a world where there are lots of cultures, even within one country, so that you end up with a France. Here's another bad drawing of France, guys. That has all the cultures within it. People living happily together, and where they're accepted and they can all live in the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, which I still cannot draw. Hey. So there is the entirety of my drawing. Yay!